Hello, everyone, and welcome to our final webinar as part of Sleep Management Awareness Month. Thank you so much for participating today. I have a couple of announcements to get through before we get into the official presentation. First of all, I want to make sure that everyone is aware that we are recording this session, so any questions you ask will be on a recording, so please just keep that in mind. Second, you are able to ask questions at any point throughout this presentation today. There are two ways that you can ask questions to our presenter. The first option is to ask a question out loud. You are all currently in mute mode, so if you have a question that you would like to ask to our presenter, you'll want to click on the hand icon to the left of your name in your GoToWebinar panel, and that will let us know that you have a question so that we can unmute you and give you the ability to speak up and ask that question out loud. If you are called in using your telephone, you need to make sure that the audio pin that pops up on your screen, it has been entered. If it is not entered, we will not be able to unmute you during this presentation. If you are using your computer microphone and speakers, then you are all set. No need to do anything differently. The second option is to ask a question anonymously. If you would like to do that, you'll notice that there is a question panel on the GoToWebinar screen. You're able to type in a question, and if you do, I will present your question to our presenter on your behalf, but I will not announce your name. So that is your option if you would prefer not to ask anything out loud. Next, quick note, we are awarding 1 CEU credit to NPMA members that are participating in this presentation today. If you happen to be watching this in a group in a conference room, please have your group leader send either an email to me or chat in the chat box or the questions box to let me know who else is in the room so I can make sure that everyone receives credit for their participation. And finally, as many of you know, we do award a couple of gift cards, Amazon gift card prizes by random drawing for each of these webinars. So if you are a winner, you will hear from me in the next day or two once I've been able to select those winners. So good luck to everyone. And with that, I am going to turn over the presentation to Mark McConaughey, and he will share some really good information for us today. So Mark, it's all yours.
All right, thank you very much. I've been looking at the folks attending. We have a very good representation from Department of Energy and NASA. We have an educational organization associated with this discussion today, as well as as far as I can tell, two nonprofits potentially, and a commercial contractor to federal agencies. So very pleased to be able to talk to you all. Looking forward to you passing the word about what we do. So my name is Mark McConaughey, and I'm at DLA Energy. And I have been in the energy business since way in the last century, I will confess. I did 22 years in the Navy doing fuel operations, both ashore and at sea. Did 14 or so years in commercial industry, doing energy consulting for all kinds of alternative fuels, alternative fuel vehicles, hydrogen, ethanol, everything like that, propane. And then when the recession hit, I came back to the federal government, where I'm currently supervise 12 people in supporting energy customers who are not part of the Defense Department. And that's what we're going to focus on today. How does DLA Energy support federal customers and authorized contractors? So we can have the next slide, please. So first thing is, you may not have heard of DLA Energy. A lot of people don't. So we are part of the Defense Logistics Agency, and Defense Logistics Agency is the organization that provides all the material support to the U.S. military around the world, and we're a subordinate command of that organization headquartered in Fort Belvoir. Our mission, simply stated, is to provide the Department of Defense and government agencies with comprehensive energy solutions in the most effective and efficient manner we can possibly do. So that is our objective. We're a little different in that, well, we're somewhat like GSA. I didn't see anyone GSA on the attendance list today, but we're like GSA. We do not get direct appropriation from Congress. So when the government shut down on Monday, we were all at work because we have a working capital fund, and we have about 6 to 8 weeks of money there. Until we run out of the money, we keep coming to work. And so we recover our operating costs based on our sales. Within the pricing for the products and services we provide, very similar to what GSA does. And we, like GSA, are not permitted to make a profit or a loss. And some years we make a little bit, and the next year we kind of give it back by making our prices less than what it's actually costing us to operate. So it's not quite like every single day we're in a zero-sum game, but that is the overall objective. So we've been around a long time. We started prior to World War II. You might think about the fact that in the 1930s, who ran petroleum in the United States? It was the Department of the Interior. And World War II came along, and the Army and Navy set up a petroleum board, which did all the buying. And in 1945, that became the War Department Joint Army-Navy Purchasing Agency. And then, not on this, is in 1949, we had the creation of the GSA. And that really started the migration of fuel from Interior, Army, and Navy to a DOD function. And in 1969, our role as being the primary support for federal agencies was codified in the Code of Federal Regulations. A lot of things have happened since then. You probably don't need to know a lot about those, but we've been around since the early 1960s doing fuel for the DOD and gradually taking on more and more of the federal role. Next slide. We are a worldwide organization. So these are the places where we have our personnel. I will point out that we have a total of about 1,300 military and civilian personnel worldwide. If you go to a military base, we own the fuel at the base, but the military service is actually the one carrying the fuel from the storage tank to you, the customer. If you are going to the military base in a vehicle or aircraft or a ship, for example, we'll come back to how do we deliver directly to your site. So next, is that the video next? Or are we going to the, so we have this slide, okay. So we're going to bring up a YouTube, kind of show you what we've done in Puerto Rico. We are heavily invested with FEMA in the support of, it's called the Defense Support of Civilian Defense, it's civil support, civil support. And for FEMA, we moved over 6 million gallons of fuel during the 3 months of the various hurricanes. This kind of illustrates that the size of our business. We bought 25.4 billion gallons of jet fuel last year. We were 7% of the jet fuel consumption in the United States. And that's because obviously it takes a lot of jet fuel to keep metal in the air. I mean, that's the bottom line there. So next, we're going to bring up a YouTube, I believe. Short YouTube, if it will work. And I'll let it do the talking for us.
DLA is more than just a mere supply chain organization. On a daily basis, we have rapid deployable fuel teams that are ready to respond at a moment's notice to our nation's call.
We are a team that is full of commitment, dedication, and we're going to be ready to provide the right support at the right time.
Once the hurricane actually hit the island and we determined what the needs from FEMA would be, it became pretty clear that there were going to be two primary challenges. Obviously, there's an alarming lack of electricity on the island, and there's also no ability to actually move fuel around. So we were able to put fuel trucks onto a barge, and then that barge was able to travel down there, and it provided not only fuel, but a fuel distribution capability to Puerto Rico.
We're running a fuel mission in support of Puerto Rico in response to Hurricane Maria. We have close to 300 fuel trucks We've spent a little over 3 million gallons of diesel in critical infrastructure.
We are getting to those affected areas, to those hospitals, to those kidney centers. We're going to get there, and we're going to see Puerto Rico to come back stronger than before.
And the point of showing that is to illustrate the fact that this is a partnership that we have with FEMA in this case to provide fuel in the case of an emergency. This slide shows you who in the federal government we're supporting. Generally, U.S. Coast Guard is our biggest non-DOD customer, and also Department of Homeland Security. So that's your Customs and Border Protection, your Immigration Customs Enforcement, your FEMA, et cetera, et cetera. And then GSA, we do a tremendous amount of support for GSA, both for their fleet vehicles and the building service. Department of Agriculture, National Science Foundation, that's primarily taking fuel to Antarctica. NASA, we're supporting all of their various research facilities, Corps of Engineers, obviously locks, dams, rivers, control facilities, navigation, internal to the United States, and you can see on down the line. So this is our FY17 sales, and the grand total is 160 million gallons for $375 million. So pretty significant what we're doing, and that's across all the different ways we support federal agencies with fuel. So it could be on a military base, it could be with their flying aircraft. We operate the U.S. government air card for into-plane services at 7,000 airports around the world. We support ships, particularly NOAA, Coast Guard we've mentioned, and what we call customer direct is where we actually bring fuel to a federal facility's owned or operated tanks, and that's a big part of our business. Next slide, please. So what is a non-DOD customer? Well, it is U.S. government departments, agencies, bureaus, etc. We can support the legislative, the executive, and the judicial branches. And under this category, we also list Department of Defense contractors such as Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Island Mechanical, who are doing work for the DOD under contracts. This can be all over the world. We can be in austere environments such as Dio Garcia. It could be in Africa. It could be in Central Europe. It could be in the United States. Federal contractors. If a federal agency has a contractor, DOE and NASA in particular are big about this. Their facilities are usually run by some type of a base operating support contractor, and with the proper paperwork, we can direct sell to a federal contractor at a what we call a cost price, which I'll get into in a little bit. We also have the mission for commercial space launch. This is in partnership with NASA, so it depends on what the products are. In some cases, NASA is buying fuel for the DOD. In other cases, DOD is buying the fuel for NASA. And commercial launches, such as Blue Horizons, SpaceX, we have the authority to sell to them. Foreign governments, whenever you hear that someone is visiting with the president or whatever, they're probably at Andrews Air Force Base with an official foreign government aircraft or commercial leased aircraft. They land there, and we support them. Obviously, we support foreign governments such as NATO and others. And then we have all the other people. We can support state and local government. We can support aircraft visiting military facilities. We do humanitarian work, emergency conditions such as the fires in California, if asked. We have a method to put together the documentation, authorize those sales. And those authorities vary by the customer and the situation. So that's really what I want to focus on here. I know this is a fleet thing as well, but I want to give you kind of a flavor of what we do. I'm going to cover the fleet stuff as well. So if we can go to the next slide. So here's what we generally sell. So military specification products. So if you're a fleet manager concerned about boats, ships, or aircraft, we're going to be primarily selling you a military specification product. F76 is the NATO code for the primary marine distillate fuel. JP5, JP8, F24, and the additives are for your aircraft. JP5 is a high flash product used primarily aboard ships. The other products are used for regular aviation. So these products are at military bases. Or if you have facilities such as the Wallops, the NASA's Wallops Flight Facility, we are providing JP8, or actually F24 to them. F24 is commercial grade JP, commercial grade Jet A with an additive package. So we provide that to facilities such as Ames Research Facility, Armstrong, I think Ames was renamed as Armstrong, and Wallops Island, for example, in addition to military bases. When we get to the ground fuels or the marine fuels that are not at a military base, we use the ASTM specifications. That's the American Society for Testing Materials. That is a commercial product that you and I purchase in our private vehicles, whether they be diesel or gasoline, at commercial retail sites. This would include things like biodiesel and ethanol, if that is what your requirement is. So that's the commercial specification products. We do not issue a government specification for those products. And while I know this is primary fleet, I just want to let you know that we also have authority to buy and resell electricity, natural gas, and coal to all U.S. government facilities and potentially contractors. And again, we also provide the bulk gases for spacecraft and missile propellants. You might need liquefied helium. You might need liquefied oxygen for other purposes. So we also sell, I saw there was a university on, I think. So we also have the ability to sell to universities if you have a federal grant. So all those things are available. Next slide, please. Okay, so we're going to focus on the petroleum here for a little bit. The primary authority is under the Federal Acquisition and Regulation, Part 8, and basically it mandates DLA energy as a source of supply. Now, we're a big organization. We do a lot of things very well, and sometimes we don't. Let's be just honest about that. We know that we have a very difficult time contracting effectively for an annual requirement in the United States for less than 10,000 gallons a year. So unless it's combined with, say, let's say you had a requirement for 8,000 gallons of diesel and 300,000 gallons of gasoline. Well, we could probably get a good deal on the diesel because it's likely to be the same contractor providing it. But if you only wanted 8,000 gallons of diesel and you only needed it 4 times a year in a tank wagon of 2,000 gallons, you know, it may not be worth the effort of having us do the contract for you. And so we always talk about, you know, what's the level of service we provide versus the level of work that we mutually have to do. Overseas, we start that discussion at anything less than 20,000 gallons. So again, there are 3 programs that support federal agencies. You can receive fuel to military base. So if you have a GSA vehicle, you can come on a military base and get a chip to go into the fuel facility there, and you'll receive what we call the moving average price of fuel, which again, I'll go into pricing later, so just hold those questions. And basically, we will then do an intergovernmental payment and collection process to collect the money back from you. It could be fuel delivered by energy contractors to federally owned or controlled tanks on federal installations. So, for example, here in the Washington metro area, Fannin Oil Company, we will get a requirement from a federal agency such as National Park Service. We will bid it worldwide to anybody who wants to bid. Fannin, let's say Fannin gets the award, and then Fannin will show up. You'll place an order through our system. Fannin will show up and deliver the fuel, which is why a lot of people don't know who's behind it, because it's a Fannin truck delivering the fuel, not a DOD truck. It doesn't say DLA Energy on it. It doesn't say anything about a contract on it. It'll be a Fannin truck, so it's the local jobber. And then we have our air card, our various fuel card programs, and these are different than your GSA fleet card. If you're DOD, which no one on this call is, there's a DOD fleet card, which is similar to what every federal agency has under Smart Pay. We run an air card program for your aircraft, and a C-card program, which is online ordering for your ships. So that would apply, say, to NOAA, Coast Guard. And we also have a new thing we call a Swipe C-card, which is like a credit card or a purchase card, and it's designed for those small craft at marinas. So it's just like your fleet card. Just go to the marina and you swipe it and you're billed for it. Next slide, please. All right, pricing. So fuel is sold at our cost, plus we have a cost recovery rate of 4.5 cents per gallon delivered. So if you order 10 gallons from us, we're going to tack 45 cents for our overhead. Remember, we don't get appropriations. So that is what covers my salary, the salary of the people who support federal agencies, the IT systems, the lights over my head, the contracting officers, the people who are going to pay the bills on your behalf and collect the money from you. So it's a pretty good deal. Right now we're running that runs at the current price of fuel right around 2% of the cost of the product. Now what's different here is because federal agencies do not pay us before they get the fuel, because we're a working capital fund, we put the contract in place, we fund the contract, and when the agency buys the fuel, that's when we get our money back. So this is very different from if you're going to be buying paper from GSA or medical supplies from the DOD or wherever you're buying medical supplies, where you have to fund it before you get the product. This is the opposite. So we require an agreement to meet Treasury regulations. We are doing interagency agreements, and they're basically a promise that we will do a contract to support you and that you will pay us, and that you will provide us the financial information we need to execute that collection for the payment. So that's a process we go through, and I have an employee who does that. It can be done at a site level, it can be done at a bureau level, it can be done nationally. So different agencies have done it different ways. National Park Service, I have a national agreement. Department of Agriculture, I have it by the bureau. NOAA tends to be by the site. So it depends on how the agency wants to do the agreement. So we have been phasing in this process over about a 5-year period. We have completed in fiscal year 2017, we completed the agreements on the majority of over 2,100 delivery points for federal agencies. And this is where we do a contract. The contractor delivers the fuel to a federal agency. We pay the contractor the proper price, and we then bill the federal agency. I want to point out that the proper price is good because we actually adjust our prices to the market. So we have agreed with the contractor as to what the price will be. We calculate it in our system so that we minimize the risk both to the government and the contractor. As I think you know, the price of gasoline over the past few weeks has gone up by 30 or 40 cents a gallon. And if you had a fixed price contract in place, the contractor would be saying, I have to hedge against that unknown price that might be coming. We don't know what the price is going to be tomorrow. It could be less, it could be more. But if I'm a contractor, I'm going to say, the current price is with the taxes for ground fuels, it's about $2.40 a gallon. But by the end of the year, it might be $3. So I'm going to bid $2.80. I might lose some money, but I'll bid $2.80. And what we do is we take that uncertainty out of the equation for both the government and the contractor, and that should give us better pricing. Now we're continuing to add locations. I would tell you we didn't catch everybody on the first go-arounds, and a lot of locations are now coming to us. They're where we did a contract, but we are asking them to do an agreement before they order from those. Our card programs are currently set up to use an accountable officer agreement. They will eventually be moving to interagency agreements as well. As I mentioned several times, we bill by the Intergovernmental Payment and Collection System. Alrighty, next please. Okay, I'm going to leave this up because this is a good place of information for everybody. This is our website where we publish all of our contracts that are for either end-of-plane, which is contracts at commercial airports, and these are where we have contracts at those sites, which gives you the best price. And then we have this other link under here. It's called Bunkers and PC&S contract. That is, bunkers is fuel into ships. And for those who didn't know, this dates back to the 1800s. And they had, when ships converted from sail to coal, they had a bin on the ship where they put the coal, and it was called a bunker. This was the same thing in houses that were heated by coal. You had a coal bunker. And that's where the term has remained from, and commercial industry continues to use it to mean a fuel tank on a ship. PC&S stands for post camps and stations, and this is that direct delivery from a contractor such as Fannin, who will deliver directly to your location. So these are links. They're open to the public because these are publicly available contracts, and you can go into both of these and you can search for information about contracts that would directly support you. So I believe this will be available. This is what the end-of-plane contract looks like. You gotta click on the map or put in a location, and you can see who the vendor is at that location. And the next one will be, go ahead please. And so at the top part of this is showing the regions of the United States. We have contracting officers who rotate between getting contracts in the United States and overseas. So you have the U.S. programs on top, your international programs, and then at the bottom you have your ship's fuel here. And so you can go read where there are contracts. Next, please. Okay, I talked a little bit about the Air Card program, just to give you an idea of what kind of business we do. A lot of federal aircraft do land at places where there are contracts. That's why there are contracts there. You can see that over a good portion of our business is with places where there are contracts. And there's about 20 million gallons where we don't have a contract, but the Air Card will allow you to use a U.S. government aircraft at any of 7,000 commercial airports in the world. And that's where that other 20 million gallons comes from for non-contract. International sales, you can see there, again, the contract and the non-contract. It's a little bit more of an even split there internationally. And we do get a little money back from the card programs, as I think you also do fleet programs, thanking us for our business. It basically pays for one person, and I think we have 8 people who manage all our card programs for the DOD and the federal agencies. Next, please. Authorized purchases, aviation fuel and fuel additives, and ground services. We pay for the fuel and fuel additives and then bill the agency through IPAC. If you are buying ground services or things like windshield wipers or tires, then you have to pay for that yourself. So this is not like the fleet card for GSA. If you have a wet lease, they cover everything. This would be like a dry lease. And this is how we do that. So, and like any other federal purchase card, there are restrictions on its use and penalties for using it inappropriately. Next, please. I mentioned the C card program, so it's domestic and international. We have a good part of the domestic waterfront covered under contract, and some of it not internationally. It's about, you can see that 13.8 million gallons under non-contract and 30 million under contract. And again, we're supporting NOAA, Military SEAL of Command, Coast Guard, Navy, Army, whoever has a small craft or a boat overseas and domestically. Next, please. This is the card for the small boats. This is actually a physical card. And it's really new. It's only been out there for about 1.5 years, 2 years. And we've processed $7 million worth of sales. at a standard price. In this case, it is a standard price for that particular program. So most of these sites are not under contract. So we have established a standard price. So if you buy the fuel in Norfolk, or you buy it in California, or you buy it in Washington State or Hawaii, it is at a standard. It's at a standard price, and we absorb the differences plus or minus from that. Okay, so contractors. We prefer to do this under FAR Part 51, which is government furnished material. So the contracting officer would sponsor the contract, and we would then be able to, we go through an approval process here in review, and then we establish, so we get a letter from the contracting officer saying that the contracting officer wants this individual company to have government furnished fuel, and we then do an agreement with that commercial company based on that contracting officer's letter. And this covers fuel at military bases by contractor aircraft, ships, or vehicles, or fuel delivered by DLA energy contractors to contractor-owned or controlled tanks. So I'm going to mention NASA Wallops Flight Facility. It's an interesting case. NASA owns the tanks, but the contractor owns the fuel in the tanks. So we have a letter from NASA authorizing us to sell fuel to NASA's contractor. And in NASA's letter, they agree to help us if the contractor doesn't pay our bill. We're going to go back to the contracting officer. And then we then do an agreement with the contractor, and we provide the fuel to the contractor. In other cases, such as Boeing, we are providing fuel to a Boeing manufacturing plant because the Air Force sent us a letter saying they wanted us to do so. And the Air Force then committed that they would help us collect money if Boeing didn't pay us. So that's generally how that works. Okay, next. Okay, pricing. For a DOD contractor, we sell at a DOD standard price. For a federal contractor, we sell at a cost plus a cost recovery rate. So in the DOD, we do a hocus pocus usually once a fiscal year, sometimes more often, and say, what do we think it's going to cost us to buy, distribute, hold, and resell fuel next fiscal year? And some people at the Pentagon apparently have a big crystal ball, and they say, for this fiscal year, you're going to charge the military $2.30 a gallon for jet fuel. And that's the standard price. So if I buy it for $1.50 in Houston or $20 a gallon in Afghanistan, that military unit is still going to be charged $2.20 because we balance it all out. For our federal customers, we sell it at cost. So if it is a delivery to a federal installation by one of our contractors, we're going to bill you the cost on the day of delivery as adjusted to the marketplace plus our overhead rate. If you go to a military base, you're going to get a great deal because you're going to pay what is called our moving average price of inventory. And so every time we get fuel into stock from somewhere in the world, we revalue our inventory. And at the end of the day, whatever the inventory is at midnight, the value of inventory, that is the price you will get, plus any applicable taxes. Remember, for ground fuels and so on, we pay tax because you can only get the exemption or the recovery when you can demonstrate how the ground fuel was used. So federal agencies and DOD, we pay federal highway excise tax on all that fuel that goes into vehicles on our facilities. We then can claim that tax back once a quarter from IRS. And I think I've kind of covered the agreements part here. And yes, if the contractor does not pay, they're subject to interest, penalties, and fees in accordance with U.S. law. And that's just the way things are. Okay, so let's say that you have a contractor, or you are a contractor, and your contract is fixed price. Well, we do have a way we can do that. It is called a public interest determination. It is a very rigorous review to make sure that we are selling fuel appropriately. And generally speaking, we are not supposed to compete with a reasonably available commercial source. And we've kind of uncovered some of these over the past couple of years where that was done prior to my arrival on the watch, where a state was getting bulk fuel from us, and we were shipping it 100 miles to them because they could save 10 cents a gallon. And we're like, wait a second, we're paying to ship fuel to them? Why are we doing this when they can get their own fuel? So we are competing with commercial sources. We don't like providing bulk petroleum deliveries. We're not really in the business, in most cases, of shipping fuel to a state or local government, potentially a contractor, in bulk petroleum. Obviously, for federal and DOD contractors, that's slightly different than if we're talking about state agencies. And we don't provide fuel based on providing a lower cost. We're not here to supplement people's budgets necessarily. So we always kind of address that too. Customers include emergency aircraft landings. We've had things like United Air, China Air land at Wake Island in the middle of the Pacific. We've had ambulances pick up people in Kwajalein, Diego Garcia, Wake Island, out of Germany, etc. We have DOD and federal contractors without the FAR 51 clause. We have locations where only DOD operates. So there's a lot of ifs, ands, maybes, and buts to getting through this process, but we have almost 80 agreements. About 1/3 of our agreements are based on this authority. It does take a while to get it set up. This authority only applies, let me rephrase that, primarily applies 99% of the time. It applies to military base receipt of fuel. You've taken something to a military base. There are a few exceptions. All right, next please. Pricing is again the same as we talked about before. If you're a federal contractor, you're going to get that price of the day plus our cost recovery rate. So that's really a repeat slide. Please go to the next one. Okay, so I've kind of covered this a little bit. This again talks about going to a military base. What is the cost price? And it varies by location. So military base, it's our moving average price. Commercial locations, and if it's delivered by one of our contractors, it's the actual price we pay the supplier for the day of delivery. And we don't know the price for the day of delivery until the day is over because we look backward. We can't, if you get fuel at 8 o'clock in the morning on Thursday morning, we don't know how the market's going to close at the end of the day. So generally speaking, it doesn't change a whole lot during the day unless there's some worldwide crisis. But we do the cost calculations like at midnight Eastern time, and then those are posted to a website the next day so everybody can see what they are, and they go into our system for our billing process. Okay, next slide, please. All right, installation energy. I don't know if anyone's interested in that. This is voluntary to federal agencies, but we're currently servicing 36 federal civilian departments within 23 agencies, and this is natural gas, electricity, renewable energy credits. Believe it or not, EPA is a big buyer of renewable energy credits from us. We do energy savings performance contracts. That's where you contract out for someone to come in and change your electrical system. And in theory, they save you money, and they get paid based on the money they save you. And we have a number of demand response programs as well. So these get to be very technical, but these are open to federal agencies for their facilities. GSA also provides some of these services as well. So you can shop between us. We operate somewhat differently, but both organizations can support your buildings and installations with energy other than petroleum. Next. And the pricing is based on individual market analysis. It can be indexed, it can be firm fixed price if there's service requirements. A lot of variables here, but again, we do an interagency agreement. And once we do the contract, we still administer it, but the agency gets direct bill because we don't have visibility directly of what you're using. we do provide the service of providing some oversight, or if there are disputes, we certainly are able to step in. But we don't directly fund these for non-DOD. So you have to have the funding in place, and we basically turn it over to the agency to manage the payment process. Okay, next please. And if you're interested in our aerospace division, that's our cryogenics, compressed gases, propellants, liquid nitrogen, liquid air, liquid argon, helium. We do sell all of these products both to the DOD, the federal agencies, and commercial industry where appropriate. There's currently a process ongoing with universities, and again, I think I saw a university here with us today. If you have a federal grant, and I don't know if that's on the next slide or not, let's go ahead and see that. That's our contact. We'll just leave that up. If there's a federal grant available, we can use that as a justification for working in agreement with you to sell you those gases where it makes sense. So Jessica, I think that might be the last slide. Almost. Let's go back to the previous one first. So give people a chance to look at that. So customer account specialist team, that's kind of where you can start if you have issues. As I say, most federal locations currently have contracts in place, and to learn how to order on those contracts, which is all through a DOD system, and accept the products so we can go ahead and pay the vendor, that is that email there. If you're looking for a phone directory, that is provided there. We do have an operations duty officer 24/7. That phone number works, as well as the email address. I will point out here, very important, on February 9, our area code will change to 571. So I need to put that in there for the next time I do this. DSN is Defense Switch Network, so I don't think federal agencies are going to have access to that. We do have a Customer Interaction Center, which, if you have a routine question, they're reasonably good at least getting the point of contact to us. They deal mostly with parts and things like that, so when you ask them a fuel question, they automatically send it to us. And then if you are in the system, you can also use the Energy Help Desk to talk about bills that you don't like and things of that nature. So we can go to the next slide now. We do have some web pages, and that's the main web page, and from there you can get to everything else. There's the contract information system, which we showed you, and the fuel card programs. There's a whole series of instructions and information about fuel card programs at that site. So I've been watching here, and I haven't seen anyone writing any questions. Here we go. Here's the air card points of contact for the various fuel card information. And again, Jessica, this is going to be available to the attendees, correct?
That is correct. I will send out a copy of this presentation to everyone following this meeting.
All right, so we have about 20 people online. So ARS, I see, I don't recognize any of the names here, but we do have a support agreement with ARS. I see the Smithsonian here. We would like to have an agreement with you all, but some of your prior leadership decided you guys wanted to buy your own fuel, and you're kind of one of those semi-government agencies. I'll point out the post office comes to us because they've done the math and feel we give them a better deal. See a lot of people from DOE. I got someone from Lidos. I don't know. It looks like PGCPS, which maybe is the school system in Prince George's County. I'm not sure. IGS Innovations. I don't know what that does. Another DOE. So if you have questions, now's the time, folks. Some NASA folks, DOE, lots of DOE. For the DOE, a lot of your facilities are run by contractors, and so we do two things in that case. We get a sponsorship letter from your contracting officer, And depending on the type of contract, if it's Part 51, it's really easy. I can do that within my team. I don't need anyone else I don't need any overseers for that. If it's a fixed price contract, I do have many overseers, and so it takes a while and has to be signed by our general officer, our brigadier general in the front office. It takes a little longer, but certainly we are doing it. I see UAMS EDU. I don't know who that is. Oh, there's Martha from NASA. Hi, Martha. I see Murray McKenna. Some other folks from DOE. So, yeah, questions, please. NOAA person. We'd like to have an agreement with NOAA all across the board. Right now with NOAA, we're doing agreements by site, which takes a lot of time and effort. We'd rather do one across all of NOAA. I know you have some subdivisions like Weather Service and the Hurricane Hunters are a different group, and some of your field activities are a different group, but we sure would like to get an overarching agreement. So that's my message to NOAA. I think that's everybody I see.
Very good.
I will be doing this presentation at the GSA Fed Fleet meeting next week. By doing today, I made a couple of notes of things I want to fix in the presentation. So you guys didn't know it, but you were guinea pigs. I appreciate it very much. And it's been my great pleasure presenting this to you, and I hope next time around you can drag in some of your other colleagues as well.
Thank you so much, Mark. And for everyone on the phone, again, I will submit this presentation to you guys, so you'll be able to get all of these contact information for later questions. Thank you again, and have a wonderful afternoon.
And I will add, if you wish to share this, you may do so. It has been cleared for public release. So it can be shared. If you're from the agency, you want to share with anybody, you're welcome to do that.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Okay, then. I don't see any questions popping up. We'll give everybody back 10 minutes of their day.
Thank you. Goodbye, everyone.